Father in heaven, we want to thank you for another day of life. We come to the throne of God and we ask for a measure of grace this morning and to purify our hearts. As we listen to these lessons, these words that will help us gain a better knowledge of your preparation for us in these times, we ask that you be with us and the Holy Spirit. And we thank you for all things. In the name of Jesus. Amen.
We still are trying to get to Daniel chapter 8, verse 11. But it's taken us some time to get there. And we started by running through Daniel 7, 8, 11 and 12 and doing a timeline for each of them. And we've spent quite a lot of time in Daniel 11. We spent a couple of days looking at verse 30. And as we were looking through verse 30, what we saw was that there were 4 individual historical segments in Daniel 11 that dealt with pagan Rome. And we saw those repeat and enlargements. And we then started to see if we could place those individual segments of history into our own reform line. And we made some headway, but we didn't really come to any definite conclusion. And what we haven't done in Daniel 11 is look at the papacy. I'm not going to look at the papacy, but if we were to look at the papacy, we'd also find that if you pick up from verse 31 to verse 39, it's not just a sequential history. You'll see a repeat and enlarge there as well. So I'm just pointing that out. So all the information that we had on the board, I've taken most of it off, and I've just left the piece of information that we had on Daniel 11 with all the dates. These are all the dates and these are all the verses underneath. And then yesterday, again, just the prelude to getting into chapter 8 verse 11, we looked at the title of the King of the North and we saw how it's transferred over from one nation to the next. And hopefully I think we came to a conclusion on that we can identify that the King of the North for pagan Rome was given, when I say conclusion, and then I'm saying conclusion in 168 at the Battle of Pydna. Maybe we didn't come to the conclusion of that, but the conclusion that we did come to was that the title for the King of the North is given before the 3 territories are taken down and whatever nation we're dealing with rules. And that works for pagan Rome, papal Rome, and what we're calling modern Rome. This is the papacy before the deadly wound, and this is the papacy after the deadly wound. And we can see this consistently. Modern Rome, Daniel 11 verse 40, he already has the title for the King of the North before he takes down the 3 territories. The papacy, he's already got the title for the King of the North before he takes down the 3 territories. And I'm just going to mark it here. King of the North, 330 AD. Brother Henry, do you remember Revelation? Without looking through your notes, because you won't find it if you look through your notes. You don't remember the date? Sorry, the verse, chapter. Revelation 13, verse 2. What are we looking for in Revelation 13, verse 2? What phrase to pick this up? Brother Jonathan, do you remember?
Seat.
The seat. This is the seat. The dragon gave him his power, his seat, and great authority. So this is the seat that's given. And the seat is a throne, and connected to a throne is a crown. So that's the logic that we're picking, that we're using to identify 330 AD as the transfer of the title of the King of the North from pagan Rome to papal Rome, which is 200 years thereabouts before the three horns are even plucked up. Three horns are plucked up in what dates? I'll put it here. Sister Sarah, do you remember any of the dates?
490 something.
490 something, good. 490. First one?
Yeah.
Last
Yeah.
one, isn't it?
3.
Sister Tiffany, another date?
Why?
Let's go with the last one.
I thought 493 was the last one.
Okay, so Brother Aaron's telling you it's the first one. So what would be the last?
538.
Sorry?
538.
538. 538. And we spent a lot of time in verse 30, Daniel 11 verse 30, because we were talking about he's going to have intelligence with them that forsake the Holy Covenant. And the date we picked up for that was 533.
533.
Yeah. He writes the letter in 533, just before he begins his engagement. So I'll put 534, because what we also want to pick up here is not just the letter that Justinian sends to the Pope. Brother Collis, what's the Pope's name?
Pope John.
Pope John II, good. He's going to enshrine it in law. And he's going to do a 4-volume law set that's going to define Roman law. So between 533 and 538, Roman law is going to be defined. It's going to be set in the statute books, and the papacy is going to be enshrined in that law, its role in the government, and also there's a whole backdrop about the Sabbath is under attack. So we covered all of that. And the reason we were looking at that is because when we come into Daniel 8:11, I'm suggesting that the date he's taken away is 330 AD, but we haven't got there yet. So that's what we've picked up from Daniel 11, and we've got Focus here. Who is this person, Focus? Remember?
Some Pope. Some King or Pope.
He's a king.
King of Byzantine Empire.
Byzantine. Do you remember? Were you going to say something about Marco?
Oh, I was.
Oh, okay.
What's the question?
Who's this person? 606 Focus. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly.
It's correct, but I don't remember.
Okay, yeah, he's the.
Do something similar to Justinian.
Yeah, so he's a I think we can call him an emperor in Constantinople, and he's going to repeat what Justinian does. So we mark 606 as Muhammad going into the cave at Hira, I think that's how you pronounce it. But at the very same time, there's this sorry? Yeah, Focus is going to re-emphasize this thing that's happening in 533 back here. So that's why we had him. And we're going to skip all the way down and get to verse 40, which is the time of the end, which is where we were trying to get to, 1798. And we'll leave chapter 11 there. So let's go to chapter 12. Chapter 12 we should be able to get through really quickly. So this is Daniel 11. Who remembers why we're looking at this anyway? Why are we lining these up? Because it's already been done.
Because
Elder Jeff did it in a class 3 or 4 weeks ago now.
to lead us to understand Daniel 2.
Yes, because I don't know if we picked up the reason why he spent quite a bit of time going through these lines, because he was trying to demonstrate something. What's he trying to demonstrate?
I thought it was the title being transferred.
There's two things. There's a number of things we're doing all at once. There's just this overview to look at all of these chapters, and they're going to show us a common theme.
The role of Rome in prophecy.
So they're going to show us the role of Rome in prophecy, and also where did they always end up?
1798.
They always going to end up in 1798, and it's going to show the relationship between the two types of visions. So that was the overall purpose of doing that. And as we were doing that, it was well worth our time looking at the details of what's going on. So we're trying to do 3 or 4 things all at once, which is why we're taking a while to do it. So Daniel 12. We'll pick up from verse 11. Just going to be 1 second. Forgot my Bible. Daniel 12, verse 11. Brother Coley.
Verse 11. And from that time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days.
Brother Henry, can you break this verse down for us? Can you break this verse down? Explain what the dates, what this verse is teaching.
Okay, when Michael stands up, the primary application.
Sorry, we're in 12:11.
12:11.
11.
Okay. Okay. From the time that the daily sacrifice or the daily is taken away is 508, and that when the abomination that maketh desolate is set up, that is in 538. And then it says from the time, that period right there is 508.
So give us the history. You've taken us in verse 11 from 508 to 538. So you can see here 508 to 538 is a direct parallel to 1131. We've already discussed that. Place the abomination that maketh desolate. Set up the abomination that maketh desolate. There's a time prophecy attached to it.
Yeah. So that's right. Well, the time prophecy with the 508, that is primarily when. Yeah. How can I say?
Tell us when the time prophecy starts and when it ends.
Okay, it starts in 508. That's as far as
1798.
and it would end in 1798.
Okay, so it's going to end in 1798. 1290.
That would be the 1290, yeah.
And then
538.
verse 12. Who's going to read verse 12? Sister Tiffany, can you read verse 12?
Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,305 days.
How do we explain that verse?
And while it starts in 508 as well, it ends in 1843.
And you're going to end that in 1843. Brother Tabo, what's this prophecy teaching us?
Yes, that's that. I've read different interpretations.
Give us your one.
I think, is it your estimate? he says that when you come to 1843, I guess at that point, you know, there's a blessing associated with that year, in that basically at that point you have the people, I guess we're going to witness the wonderful manifestation of the power of God in the events that take place, the midnight cry, and young people who are going to be fitted to go with Christ into the most holy place.
So, without getting into the intricacies of where you're going to start this prophecy, because I don't want to get bogged down in that, where do you want to end this prophecy, the 1335? We've got 1843, but can we be more specific?
Well, 1843, April 1918.
Okay, so you want to go to the first day of the first month, which is April the 19th, 1844.
Yeah.
And so you're saying he who gets to this date and passes this appointment is going to be blessed.
And there's a waiting there identified, you know, and you know the tarrying time begins.
Anybody else got any thoughts on that? Are we all in agreement with that understanding?
Isn't it true that they get to be resurrected as well? Those that make it through that, the blessing is part of it, that they get to actually see the Lord coming. Am I wrong? Isn't there a special resurrection for these people? Is that wrong?
I don't know. I haven't thought about that.
Okay.
That's what I
It may not be wrong.
Well, the statement that Sister White says is those that have been in the third angel's message, but also have kept the Sabbath.
I'm just trying to get. I'm trying to get. You've got 7 months to. You're blessed if you get to that date and you pass through the 7th month, because you have to get to the third angel to be part of the special resurrection, wouldn't you?
Okay.
It's not just getting to the spring of 44.
Okay.
You have to get to the autumn of 44 and pass that test.
Okay.
But at least you're on the right side. If you've passed this, now you enter into this blessed 7th month movement. Brother Jonathan.
I have a question. I understand the shift over in 1843 to 1844, but how is it in the beginning? Is there not also a shift over, because 508 is Gregorian time
And
it ends in Hebrew time?
So before you asked the question, you forgot what I said.
Yeah,
I said I don't want to go to the beginning,
okay.
because I knew someone was going to ask me that question. How are you going to resolve the beginning? Because I don't think it works the same. So I didn't want to get into that. I haven't got an answer to go from the beginning to the end.
Why do you want to be so specific about April 19?
Because I think the blessing comes to those who get through this experience. Many people failed when you get to the spring of 44.
So it wouldn't be more safer to say spring of 1843 instead of...
No, it has to be the spring of 44, because I think you have to get right through the whole year.
But I thought that you were applying that to 1843.
That is 18, because it's 1843 on the chart. 1843. Remember, we've discussed this. In the Millerite mind, 1843 looks like this. It goes from the spring,
Right, from the spring to
of 43
Right, I understand that.
to the spring of 44, and you have to get all the way through that whole year successfully
Okay.
to receive the blessing. Sister Brittany, you have to speak up because it won't pick you.
Okay. I don't think I understand the blessing part. Does the blessing come prior, or does it come like when you arrive at April 19th?
I think it's when you arrive at April 19th. I think that's what Brother Tobo was saying. He says, blessed is he that is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1335 days. So there's a waiting or a tarrying, and the blessing is that now you've got the opportunity of being a wise virgin and entering into the midnight cry experience. You've got all that opportunity to be blessed.
So the blessing is that whole year, the whole.
I understand it to be the blessing of the 7 months
Oh yeah.
to take you to the autumn.
Okay.
Brother Calder.
Isn't there, because it says waiteth and cometh, so could the waiting be from March 21st up until April 19th, the first disappointment, and then having that little tarrying time there
I think you could go right back to here, because throughout this year, you're having to patiently wait. You know, we don't talk about it a lot, but if you go to the fall of 43, you know, William Miller's already identifying the fall as typifying the second advent. So I would think throughout this time period, they're waiting in anticipation. Every date that you could think of, they're probably thinking maybe it's going to be this one, and then you get increasingly disappointed. Then you get to March, you get disappointed, then you're up to April. So you just keep on shifting the goalposts as you go along, causing yourself heartache.
I have a small little question here. Now, if it says here that blessed is he that waited till, or that comes to the 1335, and we see that as 1843, and then we put down April 19, 1844, wouldn't that be moving the waymark?
No, we have discussed this at length. It's because when it's got 43, and they do these math calculations, 170 years after these charts were made, we don't understand what the charts mean. We don't understand how to explain what the charts are saying. And so when we look at this, we're approaching it in a wrong way. Now, Brother Michael and I have spoken, and a number of us have spoken, that we haven't found any documentation that's a manual that says there was a sermon that was done on this chart, and this is what Brother Bates said about this chart, and he explained what all the symbols mean. So we don't know how they actually explained what's the information on the chart, but we have to piece that information together. It's a bit of a detective story. But we do know that from very early on, William Miller is telling us that Christ is about to return in the year 1843. So there's the year 1843 up here. Then he's going to tell us what 1843 means. It's not December to January, it's spring to spring. So you have to include 3 months, 3 or 4 months. You have to include the spring of 1844 in your understanding of that date. It's not December 1843. It takes you right to the spring of 1844. Without keeping that in the back of your mind, you can fall into the impression that we're moving waymarks or there's a shift that's going on. It's a really subtle thing. What William Miller's given 3 commencement dates: 677, 457, and 508. And he's going to get all of these, and they're all going to take him to 1843. This one is correct. It correctly takes you to 1843. But 1843, we're defining as the spring of 44. But these two don't take you to the spring of 1844. They take you to the fall of 1844. And when they take you to the fall, they're going to shift you into the next year. So this is the mistake that they're making here, because of how when you're going to determine that the decree goes into effect. If I say any more, we're just going to end up doing a study on this. So I'm reticent to do that. Sister Tamina, if it doesn't make sense, we'll have to tackle this issue, because we need to be settled into this difference between these 3 commencement dates, the year 1843, how one of them can be correct, 2 of them are incorrect, and it's all about Karaite reckoning. It's all about Karaite reckoning and an understanding of Ezra 7. Sorry, Sister Tamina.
I'm sorry, I have to come back what my father said. So when we end in 1843, it's just short. When we end in 1843 with Jewish time, which brings us to 1844, can we not also start in Jewish time just in the spring of 508?
I'm not saying we can. I've never taken the time to get these prophecies and go into 508 and do a precise date. When we do Revelation 9, we go to the very day of a certain month, and I don't know if we can do that with these prophecies.
Yeah.
We can go to the exact date. Okay,
I'm just saying spring to spring or something, that we in the beginning and
I know what happens, but if as soon as you start saying spring to spring, then people are going to say, well, which month in spring and which date? As soon as you go down that route, they want to get a precise, and I haven't done that. But Brother Marco says we can.
The war between Ostrogoths and francs was in 507, and they couldn't end it because of the winter. So this was just typically in this time when winter comes, they had to cease. So they waited until next year, spring, when they could continue their war, but they made this peace treaty in spring 508.
I thought you were going to give us a date.
Oh, sorry.
I got excited then. Spring. So we can go to the spring. So that's good. What I begin to struggle is, I'll just tell you what my struggle is. When you do that, then are we going to go to the spring of 1798? That's why I struggle with doing that with these two time prophecies, because I don't know if it all lines up correctly, because I don't think it's in the spring of 1798, or we'd end up looking for something else, because I think it's February. Sister Brittany and then Brother Michael.
I was just going to ask for the 1335, is the waiting marked at 508 or 1798?
The 1335, it says, "Blessed is he." If I'm not answering your question, ask it again. It says, "Blessed is he who comes to the end of the 1335."
Where does he wait?
Where's the waiting mark?
I think the waiting, from my understanding, is on two levels. It's that final year of 1843. You come to 1843 here, and if you wait through the whole year and you survive that year, all the turmoil, all the opposition, then you're going to receive a blessing, because you've got the opportunity of coming into the midnight cry. So it's surviving that year. But at the very end of it, Brother Thibault's bringing his point that then there's a tarrying time brought to view. And I wouldn't want to discount that either, that there's a tarrying time. You're blessed if you get to the tarrying time, but you have to also patiently go through this whole experience.
But why is the experience constrained to just the year 1843?
I wonder. Because if you read the text,
Because it says the one who comes to this.
But it says that waited from the end of the 1290.
yeah. It's not
Grammatically it reads, blessed is he that
Okay.
waited from 1798 until 1843.
I've glossed over the verse. No, I think he's talking about this end of it, the experience at the back end. Whoever is born in this generation, they're the ones that are going to be blessed. You weren't blessed if you lived in this generation. In fact, if you lived in this generation, you're going to be in trouble because you're Thyatira. You're being punished because of your rebellion. The blessing is those who come to the very end of that. That's how I'm reading that verse. It's not people who are blessed or people who are waiting. I don't think that answers your question, though. It's how we're going to read that verse, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not, she's not asking, she was asking about 508 and 1798, but her first question was 1798. Why isn't it blessed is he that waited from when the time of the end commences until the history of the midnight cry, or the history of the tarrying time? Why? Because it says there's 1290. Blessed is he that waiteth from when the 1290 ends until the 1335.
Okay.
Like it's just the
Blessed
whole
is he who,
reform
the whole reform movement,
Okay.
waiteth through that whole period. Yeah.
I can go with that, yeah.
I don't know what it means necessarily, but that's how it kind of seems like it reads.
And I've got a couple of hands up. Brother, did you notice that? Is that the point you were trying to make? Because I didn't understand what you said.
No, it's fine.
Okay. Had you made your point, Brother Michael?
Yeah, that was it.
Brother Kohler?
There's a bit of a tangent.
I think this is probably correct, actually, thinking about it. That the whole reform line, you have to get through that whole reform line, as opposed to the final year.
I'm looking at this, it's in the Ethiopian calendar, which you said Ethiopia, Eritrea, Greek Orthodox, and all these are using the Karaite.
Did I ever say that?
Yes.
I don't think I said that.
No. You said they were using you said they were Sabbath keepers or something like that.
I said they're Sabbath keepers, that's all I said.
Oh.
I don't know what calendar they're using.
Well, their calendar is 7 years behind Gregorian, and that takes you to 1850. I don't know if that's some kind of tangent we can explore, or probably not.
Brother Tyler.
In terms of the way, Michael and Brittany, in terms of the way you're reading the 1335, where are you getting the part of it where it's saying from the 1290? How are you pulling the 1290 to that?
I think they're reading the verses without any verse number. So it says, from the time that the daily sacrifice is taken away in 508, to set up the abomination that maketh desolate in 538. Let's get that bit out, the middle bit. From the time that the daily sacrifice is taken away in 508, there's going to be 1,290 days. Take you to 1798. Blessed is he that waiteth from the end of the 1290. That's how they're reading that. They're just connecting those two pieces together and comes to the 1335. So they're picking up I think they're just reading the first part of verse 12 with the last part of verse 11.
Alright.
So it doesn't seem unreasonable to me.
Even on the chart, they make that connection with adding the 45 years.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point here. There's 45 years that they're bringing up.
I mean, it's William Miller who waited for 25 years for this experience when he discovered it.
Yes. Sister Tamina.
I wanted just to add in the mix that cometh actually means to touch.
To touch.
And the next thing is, I see that we wait from 1798 to 1843, but then we would mark this whole entire period as a tearing time. And I don't know, because we marked the tearing time at April 19th, 1844.
Yeah. Maybe we need to look at a bit more before we make any firm conclusion. So the options are that there's this waiting for the whole 46 year period, 45 year period. It would be 45, wouldn't it then? Or it's a waiting here, or it's a waiting here, which we call the tarrying time. So they're the three options. Brother Jonathan.
Huh?
You had your hand up, I thought, sorry.
Yeah, but it was other topic. I don't know if you've finished that with you.
Oh, let me just... Right, so, Sister Brittany is saying it looks like this. Yeah? Brother Tabo originally had said it was this. And then...
Just a suggestion.
Yeah.
Well, I think...
It was just her suggestion as well. I'm just clarifying so we all know what the different things are.
Well, that period of 45 years includes the tearing time. It includes that day that Tabo's pointing.
Yes. Yeah. And I was suggesting it's just this. They're all going to meet at this point here.
Right.
But it's where our focus would be. And Sister Tamina is saying that it may be this, but it's pointing to this.
I don't know, we have the waymark. The tearing time starts at April 1844. Why should we mark a tearing before that when you already placed our waymark of the tearing there? And I think the touching doesn't necessarily have to come to the 1335. It's blessed is he who touches.
Remind us, it's verse 12, the word cometh.
Yeah.
Yeah, blessed is he that touches the 1335.
Yeah.
And the reason I guess that we got taken in the direction is because we were focusing on the waiting.
Yeah.
Blessed is he that waits, but yours picking up the point that the word it should be cometh or toucheth.
Yeah, because the real blessing came after April 19, 1844,
Yes.
the ones who stayed in the movement, right? Because the other ones it was easy to believe 1840, right? People came in, but they were really blessed after April 19 when they stayed in the movement.
I've got a couple of hands up. Sister Brittany, do you understand her argument?
No.
Does it persuade you?
I don't understand the touch part. Why is that different?
You have to the touching. I think you're saying you have to touch April the 19th. The people who are blessed are the people who successfully touch that. Everybody's going to touch that date, but those who touch it in the correct way, the wise virgins, they're the ones who are going to be blessed. Not the people who went through all through this experience. It's the ones that get to the very end that are the ones that are blessed. That's the point she's making, that our focus was on the waiting bit, and she's saying the word cometh or touching is the thing that's going to control how we define wait.
Well, there's the word and, waited and.
Okay. So she's not fully persuaded, Brother Tabo.
I don't know if I'm understanding this point correctly. Where it says, "Blessed is he that waiteth, and cometh or toucheth 1,305 in 30 days." Does every waiting have to be a tarrying time? You know?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just.
Because I guess my thought is it could just be. It could just be saying, you know, those who. I'll have to find words to break down.
Okay, Brother Arian, Sister Tamina, Brother Gabriel.
The difference between waiting and a tarrying time, I think the tarrying time is, we mark the tarrying time as Matthew 25, where the virgins fall asleep. So it's a sleeping and not so much a waiting, it's a delay because they fall asleep. Right? And waiting is something different.
So, without putting words into Sister Tamina's mouth, yeah, I think she's saying the word waited is she's connecting that to tarrying. And you're saying that it may not be. The waiting is not the tarrying.
No, tarrying is a delay.
Yeah, you're saying the waiting is not the tarrying, and she's saying the waiting is the tarrying. So it's how we view what waiting means. Sister Tanya.
I just wanted to point out that word tarrying, it means through the idea.
Which word, the word tarry or the word waited?
Well, tarrying, the waiting.
In this verse?
Yeah, in that verse.
The word waited.
Yeah. So it's apparently it came to 2707 through the idea of piercing, properly to adhere to. Right?
So what does that mean?
To pierce something, to go through it, right? Is that what I'm reading correctly? To adhere to it, to attach to it? Like something you adhere, like you glue something together?
Okay, so you're saying...
The word waited, was it?
To actually...
The word waited.
To actually get through something.
Yes.
The word waited.
Yes.
So what do you think you have to get through? 45 years? 12 months? Or the 7th? How do you read in that then? If you're going to make it, you have to punch through, you have to break through something.
Well, if you can attach verse 12 to the 11 and you make the connection between the two verses, then you would have to take it from the 1290, from the 1798.
So he who punches his way all through 45 years.
And touches 1844.
And then touches it.
18, yeah, it touches 1840.
So you have to break through all of this and then touch that.
If you were to look at it that way.
I'm asking how you look at it.
I'm just came across that I haven't given that much thought.
Brother Gabriel.
Just a minor point. Cometh to the 1,305 and 30 days. We refer to the end of this period, right?
Yes. And you're asking why?
No, it's like if it was only touching this period, it could also be in the beginning.
Yes. So your question is, are we right to just focus it on the very end, and we could? So if we came to the beginning, then it would be, I guess, when you touch 1843, you're going to be blessed if you wait through that whole year and to the end of it, which is, I guess, where we started from at the beginning, which would not be in agreement with Brother Michael. Oh, actually, sorry. Carry on.
In that sense, I think we should respect the sequence of the things described here. It's waiting.
Tell us the sequence. Tell us the sequence. Wait,
come. The first blessed, then wait, and then come.
Bless, wait, and come. And you're saying the person's going to be blessed
if he waits.
Waits for what?
Till he gets to the 1335.
And I think what Brittany pointed out, the end is a separating wait and come. So blessing and waiting are together, and then.
Yeah, waiting for what though? What are you saying waiting for?
Yes.
The beginning or the end?
I would suppose the end.
Oh, so you're going? I thought you were going to stick with the. I thought you suggested the beginning. I thought I liked that idea. Wait till you get to this. You touch it, and then. Okay, I don't know.
I'm not so sure.
Okay, Brother Jonathan.
The word waiteth comes from another Hebrew word, which also means delineate.
Yes, to delineate.
And we know in 1798 we delineate our prophecy upon a line.
Okay, just give us the word waiteth originally, just the few words that come before.
Yeah.
Waiteth means to pierce.
Wait a second. Waiteth means properly to adhere, to hence, to wait. But this word comes from H2707, and
No.
this means
Let him do it. Then
properly to adhere, to hence. Oh, sorry, I'm wrong. This means to carve, by implication, to delineate, also to entrench.
so you've got
I have two words. I have
Hebrew word which is wait,
this
and then
is-
you've got a word that comes underneath that.
Yeah, wait a second. Waiteth is H2442.
2442.
Yeah, and this word comes from H2707.
2707. I had a lot of hands up, so I just want to pick up Sister Tanya's one just to deal with this issue. Do you agree with that?
I'm dealing with a different program, and mine says that actually the 2442, it is a primitive
Right there.
root,
2442 is a primitive root.
but it's akin to
Okay.
2707.
1 second. Is that? Does it say
Yeah,
akin?
that's right.
So it's not derived. It's akin.
Yeah, okay, what does akin mean?
Like a brother to like a...
Related. I'm going to put related.
Okay, yeah, that's correct. It says mine also.
So these two are related. Where did you get pierce from?
It's through the idea of piercing.
Through the idea of piercing.
It's akin.
This one here.
But it says
Yes.
apparently.
It says apparently akin to H2707 through the idea of piercing, when H2707 is carving or to delineate.
Okay.
So they're related in that to adhere to in the sense of piercing or delineation.
Okay. What does that mean?
I don't have a clue.
Okay.
I would say they're a figurative delineation of events that are the seven thunders starting in 1798. You have delineate in that history. So I'm still leaning on 1798 to 1843.
Okay. Sister Tiffany.
I don't think that anybody was waiting in 1798. William Miller didn't start really preaching until, what, 1833?
Okay.
And if we're taking the sequence of bless, wait, and come, I think the blessing comes that they're thinking that Christ is coming in 1843. The blessing passes because there's the bitterness that comes, which is the waiting, which is the tarrying time, which also happens at the end of 1335. And they're waiting for...
Okay, so he preaches a bit before 1833, but what's the point that you think that the verses are teaching?
Well, the waiting can't happen in 1790. Nobody is waiting in 1798.
So what
They're prophecies that are being fulfilled, but nobody is waiting. And this is specifically talking about blessed is he that people that are waiting, right? And come to these, I don't know.
So
That's what I think.
We're going to end up getting stuck because we're trying to change what wait means. We're trying to change that wait means just to wait for something, and now we're going to say it actually means something totally different. It means actually delineate upon a line. And I'm not saying it's wrong to do that, but they're totally different concepts. I've got lots of hands up. Think about this question. What are you actually waiting for?
The coming of Christ.
What we actually, because we're waiting for the return of Christ, so you're blessed if you're waiting for the completion of something. Brother Chris.
I didn't expect you to call me so quick. So
It's because you haven't spoken. Loads of people have spoken already.
So I notice Ellen White will connect certain things, like the glorious manifestation of the power of God, 1840 to 44. And
Okay.
also, I agree 100% with Tiffany for first. It says, "Blessed are the eyes which saw the things that were seen in 1843 and 1844." She's building a bridge between these two dates, and it's the experience that they were going through. So
you're saying that this waiting isn't this 45 years, the blessing?
I wouldn't say it was the 45 years. I mean, obviously, this is my first time ever hearing that. I thought it was always so simple, broken down to me. The 1335 was connected to the tarrying time and also to the chart.
Okay.
1843 chart.
Brother Tyler, had you finished your point?
For now.
Brother Tyler.
I don't think it's a coincidence that right at the time this point is ending, this 1335 is ending, that the tearing time happens. The actual point of waiting marked in prophecy, you come to this point.
Okay.
And it seems like, to me at least, and maybe I'm misunderstanding it, is that the blessing is either the midnight cry experience, that, the tearing time experience culminating in the midnight cry, to the entering into the most holy place, into the end of 1844. That's how I'm seeing it. I guess, and I don't know if I'm reading it correct, but it sort of seems like the person who touches the end of the 1335 and then waits.
Which is right back to the original thought. Do we all agree that this blessing is really the blessed experience that you had for the midnight cry? Yes. Not the disappointment of 44? Because most people failed the test at the end, but if you get to the end of 43, in this 7th month movement, thousands of people are blessed. So I can see, sensing that. Brother Chris.
In Manuscript Release Volume 2, page 20, when she said, "Blessed are the eyes which saw the things that were seen in 1843 and 1844," the next thing she says, the message was given. So,
which message?
The message that was given in 1843 and in 1844. But my point, the main point.
What was that message?
The returning of a Savior.
Okay. Behold, the bridegroom cometh. Is that okay?
So, I kind of have a brain fart now, but but
come back in a minute.
Yeah.
Brother Coley.
I was going to say that it's basically saying, this is how I'm interpreting it. Blessed is he that hears the first angel's message and gets to the second angel's message.
Blessed is he that hears the first angel's message and gets to the second angel's message.
1290 is the first angel's message. Blessed is he that gets to the second angel's message. So you're not Babylon.
So you're saying it's this concept?
I'm saying that the first angel's message is the 1290 and the second angel's message is the 1335. That's what I'm saying. I think Ellen White saying that too in Testimonies to Ministers.
Brother Michael, Sister Brittany, Sister Tamina, and then Brother Henry.
Alright. I agree with Colette on a level. I'm not 100% sure if I'm ready to make that claim, but I agree with Chris too on a level. But the way that I'm understanding these verses is it's saying there's going to be this abomination that maketh desolate that's set up, and God's people are going to be persecuted and tormented, and once this ends, blessed are they that wait now for the coming of their Lord, as they've understood it, right? So blessed is he who experiences the first angel's message and gets to the second angel's message, where you will be blessed by the midnight cry. So when she's saying blessed are the eyes that have seen the scenes in 1843 and 1844, she's saying, she's not contradicting that logic, because like Gabriel brought up, you have to keep, the blessing is those who wait and come to the 1335. So you either are at the beginning or the end, but there's no way it can be saying wait from that point forward.
So you intimated that there's this connection between this setting up here and this setting up here, because that's what the structure of these two verses give you, isn't it? It gives you these two setting up periods.
Yes.
And you'd have to ask yourself the question, in verse 11, why is it even bringing this point up?
Yeah.
If it doesn't want us to address it in verse 12.
Amen.
Yeah, the context. It has to be, Mama the wait, it has to be 1798, based on the context of the previous verse.
Yeah.
And it shows you these two, Sister Brittany.
For me, it seems like to ignore the history that began in 1798 is adding a transition between verse 11 and 12 that doesn't exist there. Like the 1290 ends in 1798, and that's covered in verse 11. Why would it skip 45 years? It didn't make sense to me. And I think what encompasses the waiting, or what's delineated, is what's on the chart. It's that period of 45 years. That's the delineation that takes place.
Okay, so I think I had Sister Tamina. Let me ask you, before you ask the question or make a statement, let me ask you a question. It seemed to me that you wanted to take us to the back end of this and not look at this whole time period. So my question to you is, what is the 1290 in there for? Why have the 1290 prophecy there if we're not picking up 1798? What's the purpose of picking it up here?
I think the 1290 marks the end of the abomination that was set up.
But we've got a 1260 in I think 2 or 3 verses before this. So we've already got the 1260 there that marks this. Why bring these two things together? And there must be some connection because they're both connected to 508. What was the point? There must be a relationship with these two, because it's just there. What is it teaching us? What is the 1290 teaching? Because it's not teaching us the 1260. We know it ends when the 1260 ends because you've got the 1260 here. Is that verse 7 or verse 8, I think? But the 1290 is trying to teach us something different, isn't it? And you know, we often talk about the 1335 because we have words that define what the purpose of that is. It's to receive some kind of blessing because you've waited. But the 1290, it just sort of throws it in there without any explanation. And so what they're wanting to do is connect these two things together. And if you connect them together, then you're having to deal with these two setting up periods, which is driving them down this waiting. And I know you were talking about the question, and then they're going to say, okay, we don't mind using wait in the English term, but now we want to use wait in the Hebrew language, which is delineate, which is going to be a second line of witness to this period. To ask you a question.
Okay, maybe there's a dual application. I have no idea because I see the point that you connect the both of them from 1798 to 1843. But I see that on April 19th, 84, we have a waiting, and we do have a blessing because April 19, 1844 is also 9/11, and we see the rain starting to fall, right? And it is a blessing, and the message is giving the second angel's message, which brings a blessing to those who give the message. So I see we have all those waymarks or characteristics from this verse we have at April 19, 1844. And I don't see in the text where it says, blessed is he who waiteth 4,305 and 30 days. I think it marks more the end of it, like a point. Because with the 1290 we mark also a point.
Okay.
So I think it marks also a point again.
So let's just explore this a little bit more. I don't want to go into the point and period because all the words and all these symbologies leading us to this end, this point.
That's what I'm.
That's what you're seeing.
Yeah.
So what Brother Michael and Sister Brittany are saying, and others are saying, everybody agrees with that. The logic that you're using is an agreement on it. But there's more to this than meets the eye. And one of the things is that when you do all of that, you're not addressing the 1290. You're just saying the 1290, that's all okay, 1798. But you don't want to connect the 1290 to 1335. And the way the verses seem to run, they seem to connect the two. They're definitely connected because they both start here. And I don't think Uriah Smith does a brilliant job of trying to actually connect these two together. But he makes some kind of logic to say they both have to begin here.
Why do we have to connect them?
Because the way the verses run, they seem to connect them. That's one point. They're connected by the same start date. That's the second point. Plus, you've got this period here is definitely a setting up period. It marks it in the verse. And you can see that there's a creation of a second period because you already know this is the 45 years of constructing the temple. And this is 30 years of constructing, if we were to put the temple of Satan away, there's a construction process going on here, preparation time, and there's a preparation. So there's parallels between these two. And this parallel is being created by these two time prophecies. So there's all this symbology that takes you to the end of this, but there's also a lot of evidence that shows you that this is in the verses itself. because these two are forcing you to do it. Then you have the second line of evidence that it's related to this word here, and I haven't looked at it, I'm just going what people said. It's related to this word, and it means to delineate, and the delineation process began in 1798. Prophetically speaking, no one's doing anything. So there is those lines of evidence. Brother Henry, Sister Tanya, Brother Jonathan.
Well, I was just considering also, if we go back also just one verse prior, because we're talking about the blessing that is also for God's people here. And it says here, many shall be purified, made white, and tried. And it's talking about the wise shall understand. So I can see also when it's talking about blessed, wait, and come, you can actually apply that blessing is purified. The wait are those that are made white. And when it comes to that time, that they're also tried.
So 3 steps?
3 steps. You can also apply it in various different areas. You know, even to the coming of Christ, that they're tried there.
Everybody's agreeing that it takes you to here. What we're discussing is, can we see that it's also including this period here? Sister Tanya.
Okay, first of all, I would like to point out that from the time that William Miller understood, which is, let's say, end of beginning 1816 to 1818, he understood that some point in the near future Jesus was coming.
Yes.
So when he proclaimed the message of the 3 angels' message, he attached it with a waiting of the second coming of Christ.
What do you mean, a waiting of the sun? He's saying you have to wait until...
He was pointing out to a certain point in the future where supposedly Jesus was going to come and cleanse the sanctuary, the earthly sanctuary. So there was a waiting involved.
So he's
in
here,
his message.
and he says Christ is going to come here.
Yes.
And you need to wait.
And the way he portrayed his message, he never really gave a specific time, but he basically gave like a whole period of time waiting. He never said a specific date.
Okay.
But he said within the year of 1843, Jesus...
You're making 2 points. The first point, you're saying he's going to preach from here, and he's going to say, I'm telling you when Christ comes, and there you have to wait.
Yes.
So we're taking a wait as it reads in the English, and historically that's what William Miller's doing.
Yes. The second point I'd like to point out, the waiting that they're actually kind of tearing is basically taking us to Habakkuk 2. And I think that in order for us to really understand that, we really need to involve Habakkuk 2:3, and they're dealing about with the chart. And right here in the tearing time in the Spirit of Prophecy, Volume 4, she says, when the year 1843 entirely passed away, unmarked by the advent of Jesus, those who had looked in faith for his appearing were for a time left in doubt and perplexity. So there was a waiting, because they were waiting for the appearance of Jesus.
Everybody's in agreement that the end of 1843, the spring of 44, first day of the first month, that these verses are referring to that. What we're trying to confirm is, can we actually see that these verses are taking us all the way back to 1798? And I think you've said yes, because he tells you right...
Yes, I will level it.
Yes.
But then if you're going to go into more details, then you're going to go into the midnight cry, the true midnight cry.
Yes. So
and I remember Brother Jeff a few years ago, he pointed out that this blessing was that if you come to 1843, you actually were invited to the wedding. That was in one of his old presentations, because it involves a wedding, involves being a guest, involves being a maid in there.
Brother Michael, had you finished your point?
Yes.
What I wanted to say is that if we don't connect verses 11 and 12, the 1335 floats about with no starting point. It's actually grammatically entirely in relation to the 1290 that the 1335 even exists. It's 1335 from what? And it's in addition. Blessed is he that waited, in addition to the 1290. So I mean, just the grammatical structure of the 2 verses, it kind of forces you to see them not only starting at the same point, but intricately related to each other. If you separate them, now you have to start to figure out how to prove the 1335 at all.
And that's what Uriah Smith does. However, his language, he says you have to connect them together, otherwise the 1335 is floating somewhere and you don't have an anchor point to begin it.
Yeah.
So that's his very point. And William Miller is using 1335 anyway. He doesn't, I don't think even, when he talks 508, he's not talking 1290.
Yeah.
He knows it, but he's talking 1335.
One last point to add. When you read the pioneers on this, what they address is the 1335th year. So they say, "Blessed is he and waiteth and cometh to the 1335th year," which is kind of what you had been saying. That whole year, because they were understanding it that any time, at any day in that year, Christ could return.
Yes.
So they were saying, "Blessed is he who comes to this year, that at any moment Christ will return."
That's what Miller preached.
And we're teaching that's all correct, but we're saying it teaches more.
More about the end.
There's more. I mean more about than just the end.
Yeah.
The end is fine,
Yeah.
but we're saying it teaches us more. It teaches us this whole history.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem we've got today, isn't it? Because everybody's focused on the end.
Yeah.
And we're saying, actually, we should be spending a lot of attention
On the history.
in this period here, which is where we're at. In fact, we're saying the whole make or break issue is if you get it right here, not if you just patiently wait until the end. If you just wait for the Son of the Lord to happen, you're going to be lost.
Yeah, because it doesn't say, well, "Blessed is he that waiteth when you come to that point." It says, "Blessed is he that waiteth when you." It says, "Blessed is he that waiteth," not future from that point. It's waiteth until that point.
Because you made that point before, that mitigates to say, again, saying it can just be referring to the tarrying time. It has to be, the waiting has to be before you get to this point here. It has to be before this. It can't be that.
Yeah.
It has to be this, and it can't be that on its own.
On its own, yeah. Exactly.
Brother Jonathan, Sister Tamina. Did anybody else have their hands up? I've missed because it's been Brother Jonathan, Sister Tamina.
What I wanted to say is, I think they are connected, but maybe on another level than we think, because they have the same starting point, but if we look what is the subject of the 1290, it's desolating powers. It's a daily, it's the pagan papalism, and if you look at the 1335, it's dealing with God's people.
Amen.
And
Yes.
if you look the difference between the 1290 and the 1260, also mentioned in Daniel 12, one is a political system which comes to an end, and the other is the persecution comes to an end. So I would see they are connected because they have the same starting point, but I think they teach totally different things, and I don't have a problem seeing that the 1335 is in a kind of level disconnected from the 1290.
Do you have any problem with that?
I have not a problem to say that the 1335 on a certain level is disconnected from the 1290, because
I answered that. Let me ask you a question then. Do you have any problem saying that they're connected at a certain level?
No, I don't have a problem, because they both start in 508. Like, so grammatically they are connected.
Let me ask you then, what is the connection? Besides just the start date, what is the connection? Because when on the disconnect, you're explaining what the disconnect is. Political persecution, persecution, and then a blessing to God's people. So this is Satan's kingdom and this is God's kingdom. They're referring to two different concepts, and that's explaining the disconnect. What is the concept of the connect, besides just that they start at the same time? Because you have to come up with I would suggest that you have to come up with a conceptual connection.
Of course, we see that between 1798 and 1843 that they are again connected, because this whole time period is connected in a lot of different levels. But I think 1798 and 1843 teach us so many things which are connected, but in one level, but on the other level they are not connected. So 1843, a blessing for God's people, is different than the coming to an end from a politically power in 1798, and this took place on two different continents. You know what I mean?
So let me ask you this question then. You come to 1798 and you say Christ is about to return in 45 years, because that's the message that they're teaching. Isn't that connecting these two dates? They're saying we're predicting that Christ is about to return in 45 years, but you need to wait for that to happen and get ready for it.
Wait connected. I'm not too sure about that.
Why? I've seen your three hands. It's Sister Tamina, Brother Kolef, and Sister Tiffany.
Yeah, I understand your point. Yeah, it's a kind of waiting, but I would say it's a different kind of waiting than the 10 virgins had, and they didn't know when the bridegroom will come.
I'm not trying to make great play of the waiting. All I'm trying to do is, when you're here, there's people standing up and saying Christ is going to come here, and so they're saying you need to wait until that happens. So they're connecting this date with this date. They're standing up and saying the papacy has come off the scene of Earth's history. Now we understand a lot about the book of Daniel, and we're predicting something's about to happen. I'm not trying to say make this, but all I'm saying is that there's people that they are saying that there's a connection between this event and this event. So this event is the unsealing of the book of Daniel, and now they're saying you have to wait until you get to this point here. So I'm just trying to make there is a connection between the two.
Yes, there is, and I don't have a doubt that there is a connection between the 1290 and the 1335. But on another level, I see also that they are disconnected because they just teach two different things.
I want you to focus on the connect. I want you to tell me what you see as the connection. I understand the disconnection.
The connection is the whole Millerite time period, everything that took place, because the one is the beginning and the other is the end of the Millerite time period.
So my question is, this is the Millerite history.
Yeah.
Do you see the verses they're trying to teach that there's a connection there between these two dates? Because that's what their argument is. The verses themselves, the way they're put together, even the meaning of the words, they're trying to show you there's a connection, and we need to understand what that connection is. We know that there's a disconnect, but we're trying to say, do the verses teach a connection in respect to waiting? Have a think about that,
yeah.
Sister Tamina.
Okay, I have two things. We know that maybe there, as I said before, maybe there's a dual application, because from 1798 to 1843, April 19, 1844, so to speak, there was the time period of the Protestants, right? And from April 19 to October then, it was for the Millerite. So maybe the Protestants were waiting in that period of time from 1798 to 1843, and then the waiting started for the Millerites. So they both go through the same 3 steps, right? That's my first thing. The second thing is, I can see that they're connected in the sense of the verses, and I see they're connected from 1798 to 1843, those 2 prophecies. But the argument to say they are connected because they start both in 508 is not valid for me, in the sense, because we have other time prophecies which start in at the same date, but they don't have a real relation to each other, and we don't connect those too much.
I don't want to put you on the spot. Can you give me an example of one?
Like for 57, when the 2,300 started, or the 70 weeks, or the 49 weeks.
And you don't want to connect them together?
Not in the way how we connect them here. Like how
I think
we connect.
I think you can.
Okay.
I think you can. I think if you get the 490 and the 2300 days, you can connect them. At least one thing you can connect here. What's this marking here? The 490, the close of probation of the Jews. And what's this marking?
Yeah. So how do
This is close of probation for God's people, and this is close of probation for God's people.
And how do you tie in the 49 weeks then? The 49 years, where the streets and walls are rebuilt.
I don't. Maybe I don't understand those verses well enough. But if you can connect these two, I think you can go to all of these things. Our problem is that we don't understand the verses well enough. It's not that they're not connected. I think we just haven't put enough brain power into it. But I think if we looked at things, we're so used to looking at things in the wrong way. But these are definitely connected conceptually by concept that this is a close of probation and this is a close of probation. You're going to be left praying to Satan, and here, essentially the same thing's happening. So conceptually, I think all of these things. I think we're supposed to connect them together. For me, my problem is that I haven't looked at it enough to understand how to connect them. I've lost my whiteboard eraser. Brother Henry, I think it was. Sister Tanya, Brother Michael.
I just want to point out that wills within a will.
Oh, sorry, did I miss something? Sorry, please, I forgot my brother and my sister.
I was going to say the connection. We're looking for a connection.
Between what? These two prophecies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, well, it's just the first and second angel's message. I don't understand, or we can't see that. If it finishes on the April 19th was what? Babylon is fallen, is fallen. Revelation 14:8 is the second angel's message. Babylon is fallen, is fallen. So
you want to put the first angel here?
Yeah.
And you want to put
the second angel there? Because isn't that what everyone teaches anyway?
And you want to put the start?
Yeah.
So this is I'll put 2A. The arrival of the second and the arrival of the first.
Yeah.
What do you want to apply? How do you want to apply that? What's the point you want to make about that?
We're talking about where's the connection, and to me that's the connection. And if you're going to talk about a tarrying or a waiting, you could look at Miller's disappointment, and then now you need to wait until you get to the second angel, until you get to April 19th.
You're picking up March 21st?
Yeah.
Okay. Because you're the only person who's concentrated on that.
No, because
maybe I'm not saying you're wrong, but
because you're waiting. That was the only sort of wait.
Can we put Miller aside? Explain what this is showing us. Because we can all agree this is the first and second angel's messages, their arrival dates.
Yeah.
So you might. What is that teaching us in the way these verses are written?
What more does it need to teach?
Explain that. I mean.
First and second angel's. I don't understand.
Okay.
Telling you, it's the first and second angel's message. What more do you want to know?
I'm not sure.
Well, I have two questions. My first question, and maybe I just have never heard it. Are we saying that the setting up from 508 to 538 has been compared to the time between 1798 and 1843? I've never heard a presentation. I don't know that.
When Brother Micah was talking of all of that, he didn't quite say it that way, but he kind of implied it. So then I said it just straight out, that the way, regardless of what all the words are saying, if you took all the words out, you know that the structure of these two verses is making this line. It's doing that without you even thinking about it. You've got 2 dates here and 2 dates here. This is the beginning of a prophecy and this is the end of a prophecy. We know this. Then if we start applying the words, it says that this is set up, and the thing that's being set up here is Satan's kingdom is being set up here. We know that the verse teaches us that. The verses don't teach us about setting up here, but we've got other verses that, John chapter 2, 46 years was this temple. It took, but we see a setting up here, that's what I'm saying. So we know from other lines of truth that we can have a setting up. This is a setting up of God's kingdom, and this is a setting up of Satan's kingdom. And just because we know that, and the structure is teaching you that, I'm saying that I think that there's a strong argument that Sister Brittany and Brother Michael are bringing to the table by saying it's dealing with this history, because you've got these two setting up periods.
My other question is,
if it's not related, let me just, because Sister Bron wants to make a comment on this one, unless it's related.
Oh no, go ahead.
Okay.
I think you have to, just to be true to what we're saying, take out the 1260 though, if we're considering these two verses together. That takes out that 30-year setup, although I recognize it when we lay all the lines out there, because those do not bring in the 1260 right there.
They do at the bottom.
But you don't,
Start again, you've
have
lost
it.
me.
If you've got the 1290 and the 1335, and we put the 1260 because we know the 1260 is there, and I'm not afraid of seeing a setting up. But to be true to them connecting the two, you don't see 538.
Okay, so let's read verse 11.
I mean, except for the argument that was made a week back in class, and I don't know how to fully reconcile that.
Okay, well, no, let's go through that. In verse 11, it says, we'll pick up your second question in a minute. From the time that the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up. We've got two phrases here. We've got take away, and we've got set up. So we're left with the challenge of how we're going to deal with those things as waymarks. So when we put line upon line, we're going to say that this is 508. And how do we know that? We went to Daniel 8:12 and 11:31. So we've got that. And then we've got set up, and we're going to go to where? At least to Daniel 8:12, where it says place. So we're picking up 538 without the 1260. We're not even addressing the 1260 because we're just picking up the phrase place or set up.
Amen.
I think.
Okay, so you could take the 1260.
We'd have to.
Just put 508, 538, 1798, and 1843, 1290, and 1335 because the 1260 isn't necessarily.
That's why I put this in quotation mark. Oh, this is what you. Yeah. I that's why I put it there because it's not in the verses.
Okay.
So I shouldn't have left. I just made it because I was saying
Because
something.
we know it's there.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's that's not part of the narrative
The
here.
equation. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
So is that?
That's all I wanted to. That's all I was noticing.
Yeah, we shouldn't have put that. And I need to put it in quotation marks because they're saying we already know that because someone brought that. I think it was Sister Tamina brought that in.
Okay.
Sister Tiffany.
Okay, so my other question.
Is that answered? Did your question get answered?
Well,
she had two questions.
I
Related to this?
Yeah, related to this. Set up the. We said setting up of God's kingdom from 1798 to 1843, 45 years, 46 years. But from 508 to 538, just 30 years.
Yeah, that's what's confusing me.
But if you go back to 493, when the first horn is plucked up.
No.
It's 45 years.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Then that sounds good then. That sounds good. I got worried then. 493.
No.
You want to make this 45 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if I remember.
Why did I say no? Huh? Why was I saying no? You can't do that.
Tell us.
I just
because
Of the transition of the two
because
calendars.
Daniel 11, 40 to 45 is giving us breaks. One of them is 508 to 538. One of them is 493 to 538. One of them is 533 to 538. They're all telling the same story, but they're discrete packages. I thought that's what you meant, so I apologize, I'm sorry.
If you remember our conversation we had once at the breakfast, two things are necessary for the papacy to come to rise. The daily must be taken away, 508 to 538,
Yes.
and the three horns must be plucked up from 493 to 538.
Yes.
So it takes 45 years, and we know Satan has always a counterfeit which comes first, then Jesus.
Okay, yeah.
True one.
So you're not doing despite to anything that we've said.
Still a false premise though, because it's 508 when the prophecy starts.
I think he's making just a kind of a structural argument.
It's just an added information concerning
Yeah, he's not making any point. He's still happy. He's not undoing 508 to 538. He was just making an observation. That's why I said no, because I thought he was trying to include the takeaway of the daily and the three horns and combine them and saying that is what the definition of setting up is. And I'm saying we can't do this because there's two separate setting up. But he wasn't. He was just saying, by the way, it is 45 years as well. So there may be some line of truth in that, which I think is fair enough. Second question.
When you go to Daniel 8 and you look at the sanctuary and the host.
Which verse?
Daniel 8:14.
13 and 14.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's talking about the sanctuary and the host and the 2300 days, but we know the host is talking about the 2520, right?
Okay. Well.
Or no?
Yes.
So the 23.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, if what I've understood is correct, we can take those two time prophecies and see that they're dealing with different aspects.
Which two prophecies? Time prophecies?
The 2300 days and the 2520.
I think I've already brought this up in class. That I'm not arguing that the 2520 can't be seen in the passage, but I don't think that the 2520 is there in that passage. That it's dealing with the 2300 days, and this is where we started off this argument, this discussion. That is the Hazon vision, this thing at the end, or is it that 2300 days? Because the other point is that the 2520 is the Hazon and the 23 is the Mareh vision, which I don't agree with, and I think I've explained why. So the 2520 is in there, but I don't think it's as simple to say the 2520 is the host and the 23 is the sanctuary. I don't think that's, for me, I don't see it that way.
When we've always looked at 1798 to 1843, we've always seen it from the beginning of the 2520s, like the 46 years and the wars that take place.
So you've got two 2520s that mark those two periods.
Well, I'm just talking about the chiastic structure of the 2520
Yes.
that marks this 1798 to 1843. And all I'm saying is I don't understand, or I don't know if there's presentations that refer to this setting up, and I've never seen this. I'm just wondering if there's a presentation that deals with this period, 1798 to 1843, is the period of 508 to 538.
I don't think
Because
there is
I've
that
only known it to be the 2520 with
I understand the point you're making, yeah.
to 677, right?
Yeah, so you're saying...
so I'm getting confused when you guys
You're saying the 2520 does this,
Yeah.
and there's something going on here, and there's something going on here.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm just wondering if you're saying that also there's another one, this 508 to 538, that is matching this, and I've never...
Yes, it has to be.
Just now are we discovering this, or I'm saying has this been in the... Is there presentations on this?
I've not aware. It's been in the back of our minds for a long time.
Oh, okay.
If this is true, if this is correct, I think it is, then this history here is this history here, isn't it? These are the 2520s. If we're saying this history is this history, and we're saying this history was paralleled by this history, then we're saying that this history must be paralleled by this history. So 723 to 677
that's right.
must be paralleling 508 to 538. I would think.
But we're not getting to 1844 there. That's the point. You're not getting to the third angel's message. You're just getting to the second.
Yeah, maybe we're not getting there. I'm not sure. Do you have any hands up before brother Arian, to me, Tanya and Michael, please.
I had it's a while ago when we discussed this, or at least about the tarrying time. So that the waiting in Daniel 12 would be related to the tarrying time. And I went back to, if that is so, then we should know who was tarrying in the tarrying time. And if you go to Matthew 25, verse 5, it says, while the bridegroom tarried. So the bridegroom tarried and the virgins fell asleep. And here in Daniel 12, it's not speaking about Christ waiting, it's about, at least it's something relates to us, right? As people waiting. So it's two different waitings, or two different...
Well, there's a cause and effect. Christ decides to wait, and everybody has to wait for him to make his move.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not sure of the point that you're making.
I'm saying that this is addressing a different way.
I see two different waitings, or two... Blessed is he that waiteth.
Two different waiting periods, or two different groups of people that are waiting?
Yes. Both, yeah. Two
different people
different
who?
waitings, two different periods.
Who are the two different groups that are waiting?
Blessed is he that waiteth is a promise for us.
So we're waiting.
Yeah.
And
in the tarrying time, the bridegroom is waiting.
So the two groups, Christ is waiting and we're waiting.
Yeah.
So that's what, and so you see.
And in Daniel 12, it's relating to people waiting, us.
Yeah.
So my argument, or a argument, could be it's not referring to tarrying time, because there, it's referring to Christ as waiting.
But isn't the tarrying time we're waiting as much as Christ is waiting?
We're sleeping.
We're sleeping.
But we're waiting as well. That's why we're falling asleep. Both groups are tarrying at identical times. I don't understand the point you're making. I'm sorry.
It's okay for now.
Sister Tanya.
I just want to point out to the first, second, and third angel's message. Brother Colette was trying to say that 1843 was the second angel's message, but we know that April 19, 1844, the first angel's message arrived He was empowered.
The second?
The second angels? Yeah.
Message arrived. That's what he's marked here. We've got April the 19th, the second angel's message arrived.
Okay, but you have 1843 below.
Yeah.
But it's a full year concept.
So what are we doing?
I didn't want to rub out, I was just putting the fact here that he's marked this as the first of the first month.
Okay, but the tearing time, from what I just read, from the full time of 1843 was done, which actually ended up in April 19. At the end of 1843, that's when the second angels arrived, not during the 1843.
What you're complaining about is my graphics, not what he said.
Well,
He's agreeing, what you said is exactly what,
Okay.
what you're saying is exactly what he said. It's my graphics that are misleading
Yeah,
you.
but 1335 takes us to 1843, to the
To
end.
the beginning, it takes you right through that whole year.
Yeah,
And then the
you have to
19th.
pass through it to
Yes.
1844 in order to get to the second angel's
Yes.
message.
It's my
There's a distinction.
artwork that's causing you a problem.
Okay.
He did say that. So second angel's message arrives is on April the 19th, 1844, and it's the next day after 1843.
Yeah, but 1335 specifically deals with 1843. It's a time period that basically ends in 1843. 1335, that's anyway.
Based
Yes.
on what calendar?
Is there a gap between 1843 and 1840?
And when it ends,
And when it ends, and that
the
is
second angel arrives.
1844, yes, yes.
That's all he was saying.
Okay, well, I don't think that 1335 really, at least from my point, I see a second angel's message in there yet.
But by the time you wait and you get to the end of the 1335,
Which it's 1844.
yeah.
Then you-
But that's what we've been saying all along the line. When we mark this point, this is Tamina. She's bringing all these lines of history and symbology to say that the waiting is the tarrying time, and everybody's in agreement with that.
Yeah, but
So-
during that tearing time, there's no second angel's message.
During the tarrying time,
Yeah, during the
from which date you're going to start?
From from the beginning of 1843 to the end of 1843.
That's correct.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to make.
Yes, everybody understands that it's from April the 19th. This waiting time is when the second angel's message arrives. Brother Michael.
I found in Sermons and Talks, Volume 1, page...
1 second. Sermons and Talks.
Volume 1 SAT, page 225. And Sister White quotes Daniel 12, but what she does is she specifically highlights verse 8 and 9 and 10, skips 11, and then quotes 12 and 13. And I think it's interesting because she actually makes the point even more strong that it's blessed is he that waiteth from the time of the end forward. And I'll read it real quick. She says, "In my vision of the last days, Daniel inquired, O my Lord, what shall be the end of these things? And he said, Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed until the time of the end. Many shall be purified, made white, and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand." So the last point she leaves us is at the time of the end. And she says, "Then blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,305 and 30 days, but go thou thy way till the end be, for thou shalt rest and stand in thy lot at the end of the days." So what I'm saying is that she's highlighting the time of the end, which is 1798, and then she puts that intentionally next to, says, "Blessed is he that waiteth from the end of these of the persecution that ends in 1798." If you get my point.
Yep, we're running out of time. This is the point that Brother Henry brought up a while back, because he read verse 10 to us, and he was making that very connection that you've just read in Spirit Prophecy. Let me ask you a question. Verse 13, it says, "Stand in the lot at the end of the days."
Yep.
What is the end of the days?
Well, the chart says it's 1335,
But
I kind of think it's 1798.
because he's standing in his lot.
She says that he stands in his lot from the time the seal's removed, and she says that the first angel's message will be given in the time of the end, and Daniel stands in his lot, so it kind of puts...
Okay, I didn't mean to say that in a confrontation or controversial way.
The chart does say 1335 is the end of the days, at the end of the 1335. At the very bottom, right?
Okay. We'll leave that then, because we don't want to get an issue with that. We've run out of time, but just the questions. Brother Gabriel, because he hasn't spoken for a while.
Just real quick, I thought might be interested to consider Isaiah 30, 18, which also talks about a blessing for all those that wait. And it talks in relation to judgment. I don't know if this maybe helps to localize where exactly to put it.
Could you quickly read the verse?
It says, "Therefore will the Lord wait that he may be gracious unto you, and therefore will he be exalted, that he may have mercy upon you. For the Lord is a God of judgment. Blessed are all they that wait for him."
Sister Tamina.
I have a short question. So when we go from the point that we say the waiting and the blessing is from 1798 to 1843, if we go with this line of thought, and then we come to verse 13, but go that way till the end be. Basically, this is the last chapter of Daniel, right? So actually the story should finish. So it seems like when we take this line of thought, the story ends at April 1944. But we know that the story continues till the 22nd October of 1844. It seems like Daniel stops his book in April 19, 1844. If we say the blessing, the waiting is only till April 19, 1844, and it doesn't go on. But but verse 13 says Daniel has to stay in his lot at the end of days, and we know that we apply to 1798. Therefore, we apply to 1889 again. The point what I'm saying is, it seems like when we go from the line of thought that we put the blessing from 1798 to 1843, that we
That's not
finish.
blessing.
Huh?
Let me make a point.
The waiting, the blessing, you know.
No,
all
the blessing comes, like you're saying, the blessing comes after 1843. We're in agreement on that point.
Yes.
Oh,
The blessing,
Yeah.
the waiting comes before, but the blessing comes after.
Okay, I'm just saying it seems like if we go from this line of thought that we finish the story half done.
Part of the reason for that may be that if we read chapter 11 and then chapter 12 sequentially, we get into problems. Because you know Daniel 12 verse 1 is at the end.
Yeah.
So you've gone to the end, and then when you're going to go from verse 2 and onward, you're going to go back and repeat that. So even though you might think that verse 13 doesn't take you far enough, verse 1 certainly does, and 11:45 certainly does. So I'm not...
Do we mark verse 10, 11, and 12 sequentially, and then 13 puts us back?
All I'm just saying is if 13 didn't take you far enough, it wouldn't cause me a problem.
I'm just saying, you know, Daniel is... The book is finished there, you know, and there's not...
It doesn't, because it finishes in 10:1. 10:1, chapter 10 verse 1 is after this. That's where it really should finish, because we've already discussed that in class.
Okay.
We've totally run out of time again, and so what we learned, we've done the line of chapter 12. We didn't get as far as I wanted to, but what we have done is hammered out verses 11 and 12. And I think we've done quite good. I like this. I don't know if it is a chiastic structure. It may be this setting up of Satan's kingdom, setting up of God's kingdom. Have this interaction, they're connected with these two time prophecies. On one level they're disconnected, at another level they're connected. I think there's truth in that, especially with that Spirit of Prophecy quote that Brother Michael gave, and the ones that Brother Chris gave, to show that it's the waiting is partly this whole period, and 1843 and the tarrying time.
Yeah.
Let's close with prayer. Sorry we're late again. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your loving kindness and your goodness towards us. We ask and pray that you would be with us and bless us. We thank you, Lord, for the joy and the pleasure that we can have in opening your word and studying it together. Thank you for all that you have done for us. Continue to be with us for the rest of this day and guard us and protect us. We pray that we might honour you in our thoughts, our words and our deeds. Bless us to this end, we pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.